When I was first starting my career in cybersecurity and IT, I thought I had to know everything. This was a really bad approach. There's a principle called the 80-20 rule, known as the Pareto principle, and it states that roughly 80% of the outcome of results comes from approximately 20% of the efforts. The most important 20% of knowledge will give you 80% of the knowledge that you need to succeed at basically any job. And so in this video, I'm going to go into the IT fundamentals. We'll give you 80% of the knowledge that you need to succeed. By the end of the video, not only are you going to understand the fundamentals that you're going to need to know, you're going to understand how they all fit together and relate to your role as a cybersecurity professional. I'll be walking you through this real-world diagram of an AWS-based architecture that you can see right here. This design highlights key components like web applications, tiers, databases, security layers, and more. If you're looking to gain hands-on experience with these concepts, I do have a list of 7 cybersecurity projects below that will reinforce. So what are the main foundations of IT fundamentals that you need to know? They are networking basics, storage and backup, databases, compute power, things like servers, virtual machines, and containers, and also identity access management, because in a cloud environment, which is what we're looking at, identity IAM is essentially the new perimeter. So let's get started. What exactly is networking? Essentially, networking is the backbone of any IT system, enabling data to get from one computer to a next. It's a communication between devices, computers, applications, and users, and you could see it as the roads being laid down and then cars getting from one place to another. For cybersecurity, it's especially important because understanding network architecture is critical for securing data in transit and protecting systems from unauthorized access. Some key concepts that you're going to want to know. Now, this is mostly going off a cloud environment, but I tried to make it adaptable to also an on-premise environment. Cloud means it's hosted by AWS or Google, it's hosted somewhere else. And then on-premise means you actually own the equipment, so things like switches and routers, and you do all of that manually. So some key concepts you're going to need to know within networking are you going to need to know the difference between a public and private network. So basically, public networks handle internet-facing devices, really important to know, while private networks host sensitive systems. You want to reduce what is internet facing as much as possible because that's out on the internet. You're also going to want to know firewalls and IDSs and IPS. These are tools that filter the traffic and detect and block suspicious activity. A security operations center deal a lot with filtering traffic, detecting and blocking suspicious activity. You're going to need to know what VPNs are, so these encrypt traffic to secure remote connections. Also, an important buzzword, but now actually being implemented in the world, is zero trust architecture, meaning that there's no trust within or outside the network, requiring strict identity verification. Now, before, if you got into the network, you wouldn't have to identify yourself all the time. But now with zero trust, it means that there is no implicit trust within or outside. An example diagram to reinforce this, so right here. So in this setup, the NAT gateways in the public subnets provide internet access to servers in the private subnet without exposing them directly to the internet. Because again, you want to keep everything in the private subnet. Now, this ensures secure outbound connectivity while keeping critical applications and databases resources hidden. You have here the AWS WAF, web application firewalls, and this is the first line of defense, filtering malicious traffic and preventing common attacks like a SQL injection or cross-site scripting. If you go into the OAuth top 10, this is what the WAF protects against. For instance, for this, a healthcare application may allow patients to access the website via the internet using the DNS Route 53 and protect it from DDoS attacks with the AWS Shield. This backend resource databases are isolated in the private subnets to ensure compliance with regulations like HIPAA. And so you go into different types of controls you can implement to protect these databases, and each regulation will be different. So HIPAA might be different than FISMA, and FISMA might be different than PCI DSS. Now, the second IT fundamental that every cybersecurity professional needs to know is storage and backup, and safeguarding and recovering data. So, storage systems basically house the organization's critical data, and backup systems ensure that the data can be recovered during disasters like ransomware attacks or hardware failures. Some key concepts that you need to know for storage is primary storage. This is used for day-to-day operations. So think a NAS or a SAN. You need to know backup systems. So this is backup systems provide data redundancy and have things like snapshots, offsite storage, and cloud backups. You need immutable backups, so this prevents, once backed up, that can't be changed or modified. Now, this is important because of a key concept called integrity within cybersecurity. Next, you have the data lifecycle management process. You can set this up in different cloud providers and do it automatically, but it automates archiving and deletion of unused data. NIST 800-34, sorry to throw these words out to you, is a contingency planning guide, and it goes up into more guidelines on this process. If we go back to our diagram and our scenario, what you're going to see is there's an Amazon S3 bucket. S3 stores application backup and log files. And these logs can include access logs from the web application or database activity logs. This setup ensures that even if there's a failure or breach, critical data can be restored from the S3 bucket. Additionally, S3 is often configured with versioning to protect against accidental deletions or ransomware attacks. In this scenario, a healthcare organization can use the S3 to securely store patient data backups and diagnostic logs. Immutable backups ensure that if ransomware encrypts the primary system, the backups can remain untouched. In this system, for the best practices you may want to implement, you may want to enable encryption data at rest for the S3 bucket encryption. You may want to use bucket policies to ensure strict access controls, ensuring only authorized systems can read or write from that bucket. That's really common misconfiguration within cloud services. You may want to regularly test backups and backup restoration to verify they actually work. And then you may also implement versioning and MFA delete to prevent accidental or malicious deletions. I think everybody has deleted someone's data at some point working in IT on accident, making sure that there's versioning available, meaning the previous version is kept. So if you accidentally change something that you didn't mean to, you can go back to the previous version at a different time. They have a snapshot or something like that. Also, backing up to a separate, different data center in a different location and not using the same location that you're at is also very important. Because let's say that data center was destroyed, your data would also be destroyed. The next IT fundamental that every cybersecurity professional needs to know are databases, and this is securing the heart of applications. So databases are where most critical data resides, including things like customer information, financial transactions, application data. Securing databases involves protecting data at rest versus the data at transit in the networking. And so this ensures high availability and also controlling access. Some key concepts you need to know is relational databases. So this is like SQL, and it uses structured data storage. There's also NoSQL, so this handles unstructured data. High availability, so using primary replica setups to ensure continuous service, so you're able to get to the data and utilize it. Some database security layers are encryption, logging, access control, and query monitoring. Some security best practices for databases are encrypting sensitive fields to protect personal identifiable information and sensitive records with file level encryption. So there are different levels of encryption. So file level would be most useful for databases. Also enabling database auditing, so log all access and queries for monitoring and compliance. Restrict access, so only allow connections from maybe specific IP addresses or applications using firewalls and security groups. You want to patch these regularly, and then you want to implement least privilege, so limit database permissions based on the principle of least privilege. because privileges can get over permissive, and then say you have a disgruntled employee and then they come and delete all of your data. That's the worst thing that you could possibly do. And and then if they also have access to the backup and storage, and they could just go and delete that too. Make sure to restrict access to everything. It's very important. In this example that I have for the healthcare, there's the Amazon RDS, which is Relational Database Service in the diagram, and it's configured with a primary database for read-write operations and a second database in another availability zone for failover. So this high availability setup ensures the database remains operational even if one availability goes down. In the real world use, the healthcare, say, application uses the RDS, the database, to store sensitive patient records and appointment data. And so by encrypting the databases and restricting access to only the EC2 application servers, the system ensures compliance with security and different privacy regulations. You're also going to want to enable automated backups to ensure high availability and disaster recovery. I'm not going to say, there's a saying that data is the new gold. You don't want to lose your data. It's the most important thing you have. And databases are where most of the data resides. The next IT fundamental that every cybersecurity professional needs to know is compute power. When I say compute power, this is compute resources, things like servers, virtual machines, containers that provide the processing power required to run applications. So for cybersecurity professionals, securing compute resources involves hardening operating systems, securing workloads, and also monitoring activity. Well, what exactly is virtual machine versus a container? Virtual machines provide isolated environments, while containers are the lightweight alternatives. I would say containers often also have security already built in, and they're really easy to deploy a lot of them really quickly. Containers are definitely maybe a new skill that not many people know. If you can learn containers and containers security, you will be ahead of a lot of people. Now, you also have workload security, so protect running applications from unauthorized access or exploitation. And then auto scaling, you can adjust the computer resources dynamically based on the workload demand. Now, this again is within the cloud because this is an AWS example. If this was all on premise, it would actually be a little bit more difficult to do that because you have to have the hardware in order to get more resources. So if you needed like a terabyte of storage, you would actually have to go and buy a physical storage drive. Some security practices here is you're going to want to use secure baseline configurations. These are things like hardening operating systems with dysstigs or container images or industry standards like CIS benchmarks. You're going to want to enable logging and monitoring. So using tools like cloud monitoring to track events and detect anomalies. You're going to want to automate patch management to ensure that all of the systems are running on the latest security updates. You're going to want to isolate work, so using private subnets or container namespaces to separate these sensitive workloads. And then also you're going to want to implement runtime protections, so detect and block malicious activity during workload execution. An example based on my scenario that I have is, for instance, this has the auto scaling group, and the diagram manages the EC2 instance running on the web application. And so during peak hours, such as when patients log in to check their medical records or book appointments, the auto scaling group can add more instances to handle that increased load. Only in the cloud, not on premise. These instances are hosted in private subnets, and their outbound internet access is routed through the NAT gateways. And the great thing is, once you don't need that extra compute power, then it'll scale down and it reduces your attack surface, so you don't have to worry about someone hacking into that computer and it being a resource that they use. Now, the next IT fundamental that every cybersecurity professional needs to know is identity access management. And so IAM ensures that only authorized users can access resources, and this reduces the risk of data breaches and unauthorized activity. Some key concepts that you need to know for identity access management are RBAC, role-based access controls. So this is where you assign permissions based on job roles. You need to know multi-factor authentications. You need to understand single sign-on. You need to understand identity access and management policies. And this defines rules for what users and applications can access. This is the core of identity access management. I do have a whole other video that goes into identity access management right here, so you can check that out. For example, the EC2 instances running in the web application are granted permission via identity access management roles to access the S3 bucket for storing logs. Administrators use IAM policies or identity access management policies to access and manage resources like RDS and auto-scaling groups. And IAM is the new perimeter, and if you're looking for a cybersecurity trend, it's identity access management. Because it is the new perimeter and not a lot of people are well versed in identity access management, so some security best practices for this would be to enforce multi-factor authentication for all user accounts, especially administrator accounts, and make sure there are no shared accounts or extra accounts around. You want to use identity access management roles instead of static credentials for applications and services. And so also using temporary credentials is great because it avoids long-term access keys. And so you can actually opt in for time-limited ones. You get a new key every so often. There's audit access logs regularly, so you can monitor and access what and when, identifying suspicious patterns, such as someone logging in at 9 p.m. when they don't work usually at that time. Also, you want to regularly audit the policies to ensure users and systems have least privilege, meaning they aren't overly permissive. You want to monitor and log all IAM activity and detect and respond to unauthorized access attempts. You can also implement just-in-time access, so provide access to resources only when they're needed, and then you just revoke it afterwards. So in this video, we covered the IT fundamentals for cybersecurity professionals. Now, this was just a very broad overview. I do have more in-depth videos that you can check out, focusing on networking, storage and backup, databases, compute power, and identity access management, which are the core of any IT infrastructure. And understanding how to secure them is absolutely crucial for protecting sensitive data and ensuring that you keep your job. I will see you in the next video.